What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a brand new edition of Collider Dailies. It's another end of the year edition where we share some favorites. We've got 3 categories for you today again, and we will encourage you to join in on the conversation as well. So Maggie and I will share our picks in these 3 categories, but if you want to agree with us maybe or share a different opinion, you could do just that in the comments section. So share your own lists right there. Maggie, how are you feel? How did yesterday go? Are you like confident in your end of year list picking, or are you a nervous wreck like I am that I'm going to forget something?
I think I'm fairly confident, but there is one today that I am like, what if I forget somebody? Because
Yeah.
there was so many good things this year. But yeah, yesterday was fun. We went really long, but it was a really good episode. We
Okay,
had a
I
lot to
believe it.
say.
Well, you guys had a big category. The TV one
It was
was
hard.
that's like we have like fun little things within the movie. I mean, cast isn't little, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Okay. So our first one of the day is favorite fight scene.
Mhm.
And if you hear any galloping, it is Malcolm dashing across the room. You definitely heard that. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go
Or
first. I want to know.
I have great clarity on this
Okay.
one. This was like the easiest one for me to, pencil something in. I mean, there's other fight scenes that I really admire, but probably no surprise, my absolute favorite fight of 2023 comes from one of my favorite movies of 2023, which is part of my favorite franchise of all time. Scream 6. It
Mm.
is the Gale versus Ghostface fight. I love it for a multitude of reasons. I find it to be very effective within the context of the movie. It is super well shot. It is exhilarating. It is scary. But the reason why I give it such high honors is because I love the fact that that scene, the choreography, all of her behavior in it reflects literally everything she's learned throughout the entire franchise that she then gets to apply to this moment. Like, what a cool build for such an iconic character. And it's just so well acted, so well executed. Like, big round of applause to that team for pulling off that exceptional set piece.
That is a good one. I was kind of like torn between two for my pick, because I really liked the fight sequences in Across the Spider-Verse, but
Ooh.
I was like, I love how they animated all of that with like the Miles and Miguel fight at the end. I thought it was so good, but I think ultimately and ironically, it also has to do with the train in this one as well. But I really loved Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. That entire train sequence had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. It was so nerve-wracking. It was so well shot. And you just like always know going into a Tom Cruise movie that you're going to get like these epic fights. But that was a scene that I was just like not expecting that like set piece to be so like exhilarating to watch. And so that one was like I instantly, as soon as I remember that was this year, I was like, yeah, that's my like favorite fight, I think, of the entirety of 2023 so far.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you have a particular favorite scene within that sequence? Because I know mine.
When they're hanging on and
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's the moment that just like, oh, I like that. I'm not like afraid of heights or anything, but that moment just like made my stomach drop, and it was just and like I really like train sequences because I also loved Bullet Train last year and like all of the
Oh, yeah,
stuff and the
yeah.
fights on that. So I really like how creative we've seen like train sequences be in the last couple of years and never like the same thing twice.
I assume you like Train to Busan as well.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
figured. I figured. This conversation also just goes to show that we need a stunts category at the Academy Awards. When
Mhm.
will it ever happen?
It's long overdue.
I know. So actually, here's my transition. Stunts at the Oscars is long overdue. You know what else at the Oscars is long overdue? A
Mhm.
casting director category. The fact that we don't have that is absolutely baffling to me. Like, do people think that they just like magically come together on their own?
It seems like it, which is so weird too, since the Oscars is so like industry focused. You would think they would understand how it happens.
That's one of my favorite things about moderating Emmy season conversations because casting directors are honored over there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just like, I love the opportunity to get to talk to casting directors. Also, because I don't know, maybe it's just like a limited understanding of every single job that is required to pull off a film or show. But I feel like the word craft isn't applied as often to a casting director's work when in fact it really is. Like there
Mhm.
is maximum creativity required to put together the perfect ensemble, and I just love getting an opportunity to interview a casting director and emphasize that.
Completely. They do so much good work, especially when you see like the casting for like a younger character, like the younger version, the older version, and it's like so spot on. And you know that they have looked through thousands of takes
Yeah.
to get
It's
there, and
so
it's
true.
so amazing.
So true. So that'll bring us to category number 2 of the day, which is our favorite cast. So I do have clarity on this one, but not as much. So I'll toss it to you first.
Okay. So I had to really make like a hard decision on this one because there are so many casts that I really like this year, but I kind of looked at them and thought about like which ones, particularly really some of the smaller casts that I like the Holdovers, Saltburn.
Mm.
It was such a much tighter like cast. So a lot of those people kind of fell into more of a supporting category naturally. So I looked more towards an ensemble cast that had a lot of small parts that are never going to be fully recognized because they're just a small piece in a much larger picture. And so I went for
I
Oppenheimer
knew
because
it. I knew it. The
yeah,
second you started teeing that up, I'm like, I know where this is
oh yeah,
going.
I loved all of the casting, and this also goes back to like the casting director did so much work in finding people who fit with the actual like historical figures that they were portraying, like down to like really small minutia. And I just really appreciated how that ensemble came together, and it was kind of like a fun payoff too after like the months and months of like every casting announcement and people being like, "This is like, is everybody in
Is everyone?
Oppenheimer?" And it was so good. And there was also like a lot of people in that cast that haven't really had like serious roles in a while. That was nice to see them kind of being brought into like a new light, and that in a lot of ways was like really fun to watch. And it was very much like the Leo pointing at the screen every time somebody popped up on screen.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people ask, why did you need all those famous people when they have such little roles in the movie? First off, there's no small roles, and I think Oppenheimer is a perfect example of that being an absolute fact because
Mhm.
yes, this is Oppenheimer's story. The majority of it is told through that one particular character, but the point is what happened there and how it influenced everyone around him in that area where they were actually working on this
Mhm.
device and then beyond. And you can't have that effect unless you believe that all the people he was working with were like fully formed living breathing human beings with stakes, something to lose, and like their own way of processing what they were doing, and then you can have the ripple effect after. So I think it was vital that they cast that movie the way they did. I will second some of what you said before because, as we go through award season, we'll likely be highlighting movies like Oppenheimer, also, American Fiction, The
Mhm.
Holdovers, Saltburn. Saltburn, I'll just give a shout out in particular to the casting of Alison Oliver, who I thought was
Yes.
exceptional in it. I wish that, it's far out of the Academy Awards race in a number of areas, but in particular, that bathtub speech she gives is probably one of my favorite scenes, one of my favorite
So
like
good.
line slash monologue deliveries of the year. So job well done filling that particular role. But I am going to give an honorable mention. I'm cheating. My honorable mention is Leave the World Behind. I
Oh.
think the four of them together are pitch perfect. And I don't think that that concept works unless you get four people who are able to fully embody those particular personalities and play off of each other. And I think they all did that incredibly well. Perfectly cast movie. I mean it, perfectly cast movie. My pick, though, is going to another movie that is going to be in my top 10 of 2023. I am going to shout out Talk to Me because that is an ensemble. I think I'm familiar with some of them. Like, of course, everyone knows Miranda Otto, but that movie is going to put a lot of young rising talent on the map in a big way. And that really excites me. But first and foremost, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about Oppenheimer because that movie has a clear lead. It's got its main characters, but the entire group of, I mean, I guess they're not like friends. They're kind of friends.
Yeah.
They're a little antagonistic towards each other sometimes, but the core group that we watch using the hand, it's another situation where sometimes you only get so much screen time, but you need to be able to like feel the weight of the situation they're in, and like their history or lack of history with the hand, and what it means to them to use it, and why certain ones turn against it being a fun thing faster than others, why some react to it differently. Like they all have different histories and different personal experiences, and that heavily influences how they behave after shit gets dangerous. And I
Mm.
feel like the fact that they all feel like full people is what makes that so powerful, and the movie overall so special. So that is another one where I think the casting is spot on. I mean, I think Sophie Wilde is an exceptional lead, but I'll just give a big shout out to Joe Bird, who plays Riley, the younger brother in the movie, who I
Mhm.
think just gives like a phenomenal emotional and physical performance. And like him, to me, he's like the example of like a really great find. And I'm gonna be watching out for him. I Based on this movie, I feel like he could do anything, so I'm excited to see what he does next now.
That's a really good pick.
Yeah, I'm feeling really good about that pick. Now we've hit the messy category. This is a problem category. So this is the favorite interview category. I'm stressed.
Ooh, so
Because
good.
I didn't even know the other two categories. I had like a little bit of a roadmap. I was already leaning in directions the
Mhm.
second the topics came to mind. But this one, I'm like all over the place.
I know. And you picked this one for
And
us, so it's like,
well, well, given what the majority of my year is, it felt important to do something like this.
I
And
know.
then I started to go, because I'm like, surprise, surprise, I'm like OCD about organizing like all my Collider work and files and folders and documents and all that stuff. And I'm basically like scrolling through everything I've conducted in those folders, and like,
I
like
know.
shit.
I went back through my stuff and I was like, wait, that was this year? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
You know what's the one, this is an interview related, but the one that really is making me go more so than any other movie, that was a 2023 movie. It's Megan. First of all, I feel
Yep.
like the movie came out years ago, but also because it's so well ingrained in pop culture, it feels like it's had like many
Mhm.
years to assume that status. But no, it came out in January, and here we are.
That's insane. I
Isn't
totally thought
that?
that was last year too.
Nope, nope, this year. This
Wow.
year.
Well, that's mind blowing.
You want to just like name a bunch and we'll bounce back and forth?
Yeah.
I'll start with a really recent one, and like, it's, I guess it's a little bit selfish just because it's one that made me feel good based on his reaction to my questions, which I always appreciate. Like, to anybody out there who ever watches an interview and sees the filmmakers say to the interviewer, "Good question." I don't know if everybody who does what we do feels the weight of that, but
Mhm.
like I do, and I cherish it. And Sterling K. Brown had one of the biggest reactions I've ever received to one of my questions.
Oh, I love
And
that.
I'll always cherish that moment. But also, he was just like, he's a phenomenal interviewee. Like,
Mhm.
not only has a thoughtful answer to everything, but cares about, like, you could tell he really cares about what he says, and he's going to think about it. And I don't know, I really appreciated how, like, he came to play, he came with information, and he came with enthusiasm. And that's like, what more could you ask for when you're interviewing someone?
100%. That, I mean, that's all you want. You want everyone to be happy and like give deep
Yeah.
answers. And oh gosh, this year was so wild for me, I have to say, because I am a big person who believes in like manifestation. And so I do manifestation boards every year. And like a bunch of the things that were on my manifestation board last year happened this year. And a lot of it was like interviews that I never thought would ever happen. And like some of them were like decades in the making. So I got to interview Ed Spilliers at the start of the year for Star Trek Picard and also a little bit for you. And that was like such a weird like wish fulfillment because I loved him in Aragon back in the day. If I could get my words to work for me there, like too emotional. And I loved, like, I wanted his career to do so well, but because Aragon had kind of been like a like poorly received movie at the time, it took a while for his like career to really take off. And so to see him in Star Trek Picard and to get to talk to him about like his career and all of that was like just so fun. And he's so wonderful. And it was such a good, I got to talk to him twice, like 30 minutes both times. And it was like such a wonderful interview.
That's a good one.
I
That's a
know.
I want to see your manifestation board.
Oh,
Is
it's
that too
crazy.
personal? You should You should post a picture of it on social media and like circle the
All the things that happened.
accomplishments. That'd be cool. That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
it's wild. I started in 2020 and it's paid off every year.
Huh, you make me kind of want to do that.
It's
Maybe I
fun.
should make a ladies' night manifestation board.
Do it. Pinterest
I
is
don't
my
want to.
favorite. Pinterest
Okay.
is so fun because you can have a private board and just like fill it to your heart's content.
Huh, I like that idea. Well, this is kind of like a bucket list one. This isn't a Collider one. It is a SAG after one because one of my I love moderating anything for the foundation, but in particular, my favorite things that they give me are those career retrospectives. I had done 3 of them last year slash this year, and I love I like long form
Mhm.
interviews, and I just love going back to the beginning and like retracing someone's steps and figuring out what worked and what didn't and what still applies today and what was different back then. They recently just gave me Emily Blunt's career retrospective, and I mean, I have been following her work for however long she's been working, and I've been such a big fan for forever. And there were just, going through her filmography, there were just so many high priority titles that I was genuinely excited to talk about. And then we met, and she was absolutely lovely. And another favorite part of those career retrospectives is that they usually like I mean, in all of my cases, at least, I can't speak for every single one they've ever booked, but in every one that I've had the pleasure of moderating, they find people who are good at talking about their journey and craft, who are able to
Mhm.
articulate it. And I think it's a very difficult thing to do, but also people who have amassed such like loving fans, I guess. Because whenever I introduce someone for a career retrospective, it's always like the best standing ovation, like reception that I have ever seen. And the same thing happened in that room. Like, I think it made her feel good. Her answers, I think, made the audience feel good. Everyone seemed like so happy and satisfied at the end. And I don't know. I just like I always want those conversations to make the person I'm interviewing like be reminded of how proud they should be of their work, but that also the audience has that experience where hearing someone else's opens the door to like the wealth of promise this industry has to offer if you have the right information in your back pocket. And I don't know, I felt the vibes in the room that night, and it's a memory I will cherish.
It was an excellent interview to watch. I loved when it showed up in totality in my inbox. I was like, yes, this is a good one. I can't wait to watch. It was
They're
like such
good
a
for
perfect combination of talent and talent doing the interviewing. So it
they're
was
they're
good.
good programmers there. They know what they're doing. They know what they're
They
doing.
definitely do. I feel like, oh gosh, there's so many. Like this is so hard because like even listening to you talk about that one, I'm like, oh my gosh, which one should I pick to like say next? This one was one that like I never expected I would get to do this interview, but it came about at New York Comic Con, and that was the Matthew Vaughn interview I did, which I've loved his work. Like Stardust is one of my favorite movies. I love the Kingsman movies. Like I pretty much love everything that he has ever created. And getting to talk to him was so great because he was so forthcoming in a way that I haven't seen him be forthcoming in some other interviews of his that I like read from New York Comic Con. And I think we just like matched our energies really well, which is like all you can really like hope for an in-person interview sitting at a table in a noisy room at New York Comic Con. And once he realized that like I like the history stuff, he like just told me so much about like his Kingsman like next project. And it was just so exciting to like hear him talk about it and kind of like jive. And it was like I never thought I was going to talk to Matthew Vaughn, but then like hearing him talk about his stuff that he loved was just like so fun. And it was also my very first like profile style interview that I got to do for Collider, and I just loved like the final product and like the process, and it was so good. I really enjoyed that one.
You know that feeling when something clicks in that special way, and
Mhm.
like you hold tight to that feeling.
It's great. Oh,
Like
I love when that happens.
I always chase it. You can't always demand it because it's not always
Mhm.
naturally there, but like when you have it, you hold tight to it and you enjoy it. Do you want to each do one more?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it's hard not to.
I know. So I'm gonna cheat with this next one, and I'm going to say, and like honestly mean every single Collider Ladies Night interview of 2023. I can't believe how many episodes of that show we've done so far. Like I still can't believe the show still exists, and I'm gonna knock on wood that it does, and I'm gonna
I don't
be
know how
all
you
super
have the
stitchy.
energy to do as many because they're so like in depth and like thought out, and like the production is so high and the conversations are so good. It's so
Well,
impressive.
for the production stuff, shout out to Adam who's behind the scenes right now because I mean this from the bottom of my heart, the only reason that those videos can be as good as they are on screen is if someone is editing the footage who cares about the show as much as I do, and the fact that we were able to find an editor who puts as much like time and pride into bringing the ladies night concept to screen the way I always envisioned it. That's a very important key and a very important piece to that puzzle that makes the show as good as it is. I like all right, on the selfish side of things, like I just love it. I like those are the kinds of conversations that like fill me up and stimulate me as an interviewer and as a movie and TV lover in the best possible way. So I love it from that perspective, but then also, and like obviously I can't confirm that this happens, but whenever it's kind of similar to what I said about Emily Blunt, but whenever I do one of those interviews, whether it's someone who's just starting out in the industry or someone who's been here for like films and films and films and shows, like the one big takeaway I always want to guarantee someone has by the end is the ability to be able to walk away from the conversation and feel good about what they've accomplished, feel good about what they've accomplished and feel even better about the road ahead. And I don't know. I think about that in like my day-to-day life too. Sometimes you need to like sit there and have that speed through of what you've done and what your goals are for the future. So if ladies night can function like that for their guest, for the guest I feel good about that. And oh, there's just like I can't even single out a couple. There were just so many like wonderful conversations we had on the show this year where, people talked about like key memories, major first, like shared really beautifully like personal professional experiences that they've had that mean something to me to hear. I think it means something to the audience to know that information, and I hope it means something to them to remind themselves of those memories and to be able to share them. So ladies night continues to just like be a major ray of light in my life, and I appreciate the opportunity to continue the show.
I love that. I mean, there's always such good episodes in Ladies Night. I always enjoy watching them as much as like, pulling things out for news because you always get such good stuff
I
from
try.
movies. It's so good.
I try to feed the news. I try to feed the news team with like good hearty food.
And we always feast. So for my last one, and honestly, I could name so many because I still cannot wrap my head around some of the talent that I got to talk to this year. But my last one for 2023 was Daniel Bruhl, which
I knew it.
yeah,
I
I
knew
was like, everyone's probably like, she hasn't said his name yet. Like I am a very big fan of his work. I've watched a lot of his filmography, and I really appreciate the stuff that he has done in a multitude of different languages, which is like so impressive. But getting to talk to him for Race for Glory was like, I just did not wrap my head around it until after it was over with. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And he was wonderful. It was like a very quick 10-minute conversation. I made it work for 12 minutes instead. And it was really great. And I hope that I get a chance next year to talk to him, kind of the same kind of idea of this like career retrospective, because his career is one that I've like really appreciated the material that he's put out there and the work that he has done both in front of and behind the camera as executive producers on stuff like All Quiet on the Western Front. So it was just a really great conversation, and like 3 years in the making. It's always fun when you get to do an interview and like your friends are like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited that this like finally happened. This is so
true.
great.
Wait, I lie. I have one more question for you.
Yes.
Which interview that you conducted made you the most starstruck?
Oh gosh.
I think about that a lot.
I would say, so I try not to get too starstruck, and it's kind of like been a thing that I tried to like compartmentalize and like get starstruck after they're gone. But I think Ewan McGregor getting to be on stage just talking to him was like very big starstruck. And apparently nobody noticed. So it pays off. But that was like
That's always the goal.
I think that was the biggest interview I did this year because that was in front of an audience of like 8,000, 10,000 people. live. There was no edits.
I never want to not be starstruck. It's the same thing that I always say about being nervous before every interview, because I feel like if you don't have the nerves, maybe you don't care enough. And
Yeah.
I
I'm
never
always
want to
nervous.
just like coast, but it's the same thing with feeling starstruck. I always want to have a little bit of it, maybe not to the point where like I can't speak, but
Yeah.
have a little bit of it because it's like a clear reminder of how much I admire that person and their work. I I always feel like obviously I was very nervous leading up to the Emily Blunt one. The second like someone walks in a room though, it's like, oh,
Mhm.
they're like a person. And usually the starstruck element of it, or
Yeah.
like the debilitating version of being starstruck, immediately like goes away. I will say the one that I was like shaking in my boots the most for before walking into the room was probably Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer.
Right.
Just like, I don't know, like it was for the Blu-ray release, so many people had spoken to him. I know he's like really warm and kind in an interview setting, but I feel like, I don't know, like one of the biggest movies of the year, one of the most incredible working directors we have. And I I have that limited view of Nolan too. Like he's so serious. I got to come in with my like serious film questions, and I don't know. I was nervous before
He
walking
seems
into
like a
that
fun
room.
one.
Literally, like this, the second you walk into his interview space, there is kind of like a warm and welcoming presence, not like, something that makes you feel teeny tiny, which is not that I had like negative expectations, but like
Yeah.
he's just like such a
He's
big
Christopher
such a
Nolan.
figure that
Yeah.
like that's how I felt before I walked in. But really, the second I sat down in that seat, like he made me feel like I was on like even playing field. And the same is
Mhm.
true of everybody who was involved in that junket. They made this like incredible movie and like just made me feel really
Mhm.
comfortable talking about it, which I always appreciate. So
I'm
he's
definitely
probably
always
mine.
nervous. Like I'm always nervous when I do interviews, but I think the reason I've like compartmentalized start like the Starstruck feel is after working on movies and television shows with people who I like love and respect, like working on Wonder Woman 1984 and seeing like Chris Pine every day. My Starstruck thing like went away completely because I'm like, that's my coworker. Every day we clock in at the same time and we make this thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's where like that dampened my Starstruck. But I'm always nervous. I like my attitude gets really cranky before an interview. I'm like, nobody bother me to get in my mode.
You take those nerves and you remind
Yep.
yourself that you have the nerves because you love what you do and you care
Yep.
about doing a good job. And I think that's a
Exactly.
good thing. All right. That is a wrap on today's edition of Collider Dailies. As you see the wheels of my brain turning, racking my brain for what comes next. Thursday is me and Steve sharing our top 3 movies of 2023. I really need to sit down and like make sure I'm locking in the list I have in my brain right now. And then on Friday, John and Maggie will share their top 3 of 2023. And then on Monday, New Year's Day, what's calendar? On New Year's Day, you're going to get me and Steve talking about our most anticipated movies of 2024. And maybe you'll get more of that talk from John and Maggie through the week, too. I feel like
Maybe.
that there's more than enough movies to talk about. So that is the plan. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to hit the comment section below with your own picks in these particular categories. And we will see you tomorrow with a brand new edition of Collider Dailies.